You're not heard. You answer the question clearly. You choose every word with precision. Then silence. A few blank nods. Someone else repeats your idea 5 minutes later. Louder, with less detail, and suddenly the room leans in. That's a great point, someone says, and you just sit there, erased while still standing in plain sight. The frustration isn't just about that moment. It's about the quiet confusion that follows. Because you didn't mumble. You didn't ramble. You were clear. So why did nobody hear you? One reason this happens isn't clarity at all. It's something most people don't talk about. In many social settings, meetings, groups, even friendships, conversation isn't just about exchanging ideas. It's also about positioning. People are unconsciously tracking where everyone fits. And once someone forms an impression of you, a psychological filter called confirmation bias can kick in. They start noticing only what fits that impression and overlooking what doesn't. So if they've already decided your voice carries less weight, they stop hearing you before you even open your mouth. You're not being ignored because you're unclear. You're being ignored because you're making it too easy for them to not care. Think about how you prepare for important conversations. You rehearse the sentences in your head. You anticipate objections. You edit out anything that might make you sound too emotional, too needy, too much. By the time you speak, what comes out is polished, rational, and safe. You delivered a perfectly structured sentence. But you also removed the heat, the very thing that makes people feel something. And people remember impact, not just information. You've seen it happen. You lay out a clear, thoughtful point. Blank stares. Then someone else jumps in, says roughly the same thing with more volume and less precision, and suddenly the group nods. Exactly. You weren't unclear. You just didn't trigger the emotional response that signals this matters. Information without impact gets filed. Impact without perfect clarity gets remembered. What if the problem isn't your clarity, but who you've been trying to be clear for? But that's only the surface layer. The pattern goes deeper, and the real reason is something you might have been carrying for years without naming it. For many people, the deeper wound isn't simply being ignored. It's what being ignored seems to confirm. If you grew up as the kid whose thoughts were dismissed, whose emotions were labeled too sensitive, whose voice was tolerated but never sought out, then every adult conversation where you aren't heard doesn't land as a simple misunderstanding. It lands as proof. Proof that your inner world still doesn't matter. Proof that no matter how clearly you speak, you'll remain invisible. That's where a silent story takes root. The internal narrative you carry about your own worth. When that story whispers, "My voice doesn't carry weight," you start shaping your words to avoid attention. You over-explain to prevent being misjudged. You apologize before making a point. You choose clarity as a shield, hoping that if you're perfect enough, someone will finally hear you. Not just your words, but you. Everything so far explains the pattern, but we're still not at the deepest layer. Stay with this. This next part is about what actually shifts. There's one more psychological layer that turns this from a painful pattern into something you can actually use. What if being unheard in certain rooms isn't about your worth? It's about their listening capacity. And you've been measuring your value by the silence of people who weren't equipped to hear you. That's not a flaw in your voice. That's a mismatch between what you were offering and what they were capable of receiving. This is the kind of emotional wiring most channels never touch. Once you see it, you start noticing it everywhere. In the way you brace yourself before speaking in a group. In the quiet hope that this time, someone will ask a follow-up question instead of moving on. In the loneliness that settles in after you've been clear, and still nothing. You didn't learn to speak clearly because you wanted to be articulate. You learned to speak clearly because you were terrified of being misunderstood one more time. But the uncomfortable truth about clarity is this. It can't make someone care who already decided not to. Being heard isn't about perfect clarity. It's about finding the people who listen on the same frequency you speak. Those people exist. But you won't find them by shrinking yourself into digestible pieces. You'll find them by letting your words carry the weight you actually feel, and allowing the people who can't hold that weight to fall away. The goal isn't to make everyone listen. The goal is to stop offering your voice to those who've shown they can't receive it. So the next time you speak clearly and feel the room slide past you, remember this. The people who matter won't need you to become louder. They'll become quieter. Because real listening doesn't interrupt. It leans in. That's not a communication problem. That's a filter. And it's working exactly the way it should. Have you ever noticed the moment you realized someone wasn't ignoring your words? They had already decided how much weight your voice carried? Describe that shift.